and welcome back. If you are just now stumbling across this video or new to my channel or just checking things out, this channel is a mixture of bookish, mythology, legends, folklore, and a couple other cozy vibe topics. This video in particular is a 5-part series where we are going through and discussing the different races of humanity according to Greek mythology. So this topic is derived from the poet Hesiod. It's the Works and Days, and it goes through the different ages or races of humanity. So he describes it as races. We might interpret that as ages. So far, we've gone through the golden age of humanity. This was a race of humanity that was created by Cronus after the Titanomachy. And then when Zeus came into power and, surpassed his father, he got rid of the golden race and he created the silver race, which he then destroyed. And then he created the bronze race that destroyed themselves. So now we are going into the heroic race. And this would be a new race of humanity that was created. However, instead of being defined by its traits, such as the golden race was defined as perfection. It was perfect, it was harmonious, it was an idyllic life. The Silver Age was known for its arrogance. It was still wise. That race of peoples, they worked together, there was still harmony, but they were arrogant and denounced the gods, which is why Zeus destroyed them. The Bronze Age was known for just complete and utter violence, and they destroyed themselves. Zeus didn't have to do anything. They just got rid of themselves. So now Zeus has created a new race of people, and instead of being defined by traits, it's defined during a time by the specific individuals that were part of that race. So this is going to be the times of some of the characters we're more familiar with, like Heracles, different demigods, monsters, characters like Perseus, Achilles, Odysseus, a lot of the things that we would know as Greek mythology. Maybe it might be good to describe it as things that you would find in a Rick Riordan series. So it's the heroic age. It's the first time since the golden race that humanity has not declined, which I think is a good milestone. The third time's the charm, apparently, Zeus. Like, you've already gone through 2 different races of people. You destroyed one destroyed themselves. Finally having some success there. So instead of creating another race that was weaker, crueler, or more corrupt than the last, Zeus created the heroic age, a generation unlike any that had come before it. While the previous races were defined by broad traits like peace, pride, or violence, the heroic age was defined by individuals whose choices shaped the course of history. This is the age of Perseus, who defeated the monstrous Medusa, which we will have another discussion. I have a side series that I've done one video on called Wicked Women in Greek Mythology, and Medusa is going to be one of those. So we'll talk about her later. It was the age of Heracles, whose 12 labors tested not only his incredible strength, but also his endurance. Jason gathered the Argonauts in search of the legendary Golden Fleece. Theseus journeyed into the labyrinth to slay the Minotaur, and later came Achilles, Hector, Ajax, and Odysseus, whose deeds during the Trojan War would inspire poets for thousands of years. Unlike the earlier races, many heroes were born from both divine and mortal parents. These demigods inherited extraordinary abilities from their immortal lineage, but they also carried very human flaws. They could be brave, loyal, compassionate, and selfless, but they could also be proud, stubborn, jealous, and reckless. So, yeah, when we think of heroes, that is one of the, I don't want to say pronouncing themes, but one of the themes that you see in stories about heroes or heroic deeds is that there is going to be some level of a fatal or mortal flaw. So those are going to be things like pride. One of the seven, it's the deadliest sin, pride, because it's the hardest to combat. Pride, you just build on, it just builds on itself. Pride is so hard to break. So that is one of the hardest mortal flaws to overcome. You got stubbornness, jealousy, recklessness, immaturity, anger. Those are things that make heroes more human, and that shows the more mortal half of their genetics, I guess to say. So yes, they're not going to be perfect. They're a combination of divine strength or intelligence. There's going to be something extraordinary about them from the gods, from their parental lineage that way, but you're going to have a mortal flaw that's going to be important for them to overcome, and that's what I see this age being. This age is, it's life, right? There's nothing too defining about it. It's not necessarily harmonious, but it's not violent. It's not exactly perfection or idyllic, but it's not poverty or famine. Like, it's just an existence of struggle that can be overcome with heroes that are overcoming their own mortal flaws to inspire others, is what I see as what this age is defined with, which is different from the other ages or races of humanity. This is new to the world, but it was this combination that made them fascinating. The heroic age wasn't a return to perfect peace of the golden race. War still existed, monsters still threatened humanity, kingdoms still rose and fell. So there was still a flow of life. There were still events, kind of like when you hear you can't understand the sunshine until you go through the rain. So they had good and bad here. It wasn't extreme one way or the other. It was a pendulum. People coming into power, losing it, a power vacuum being filled, and it goes back and forth. But the difference was that these heroes fought for something beyond themselves. They sought justice, protected their people, honored sacred oaths, pursued glory through acts of courage rather than meaningless violence. So there was a purpose behind their actions. They weren't just out slaying monsters or doing things just to do them. They were protecting people. They were uplifting kingdoms. They had meaning behind their actions. But that doesn't mean every hero is perfect. So some examples that are discussed of, like I said, there's going to be, skills or traits that come from divine genetics, I guess I should say. And then there's also going to be their mortal flaw. So some examples of these. So Achilles' pride nearly doomed the Greek army. So Achilles was known as being a great fighter, awesome in battle. But then pride got in the way. Heracles struggled with uncontrollable rage, which is a devastating story and one that we will probably delve into down the road if we get there. I don't so much like Heracles' story. I don't. It's a devastating story. It is. It's horrible and it's unfair and it's unjust, but he did have rage. So there is that. I think that's mischaracterized. I feel like this is mischaracterizing Heracles's anger, but maybe we'll delve into it and maybe I'll find out it's not so much an exaggeration. Jason betrayed those who had helped him. Even Odysseus, celebrated for his intelligence, often relied on deception and paid dearly for it. That one I don't know is so much of a stretch. I do think that there was some deception, on a need to know basis, is what I remember thinking about Odysseus's giving of information. Maybe we'll delve into some of those later if we want to. Greek mythology never presents heroes as flaws. Instead, it suggests that true heroism comes from facing impossible circumstances despite one's imperfections. The heroic age reminds us that greatness is not the absence of flaws, but the willingness to confront them. Many of the defining events in Greek mythology take place during this age. So, like I had said earlier, it seems like this is a race of people where the things that we understand as Greek mythology, this is that time period that all of those things happened. The expedition of the Argonauts, the war against Thebes, the legendary Trojan War, all belong to the heroic age. These stories became a cultural memory for ancient Greece, teaching lessons about honor, sacrifice, loyalty, and the consequences of pride. Eventually, as all things do, because we have one more race we have to talk about, right? So the heroic race comes to an end. Many heroes perished in the Trojan War or in the adventures that followed. Others died fulfilling prophecies that had shadowed them since birth. Their age faded, making way for the final age of humanity, the Iron Age. But unlike the Bronze race, whose violent lives ended without honor, many heroes received extraordinary rewards after death. So some of them became things like constellations. I know is a very popular, afterlife memorial remembrance that the gods would bestow upon demigods or other mortals, or I think it was only demigods, where if they did something extraordinary and they died and the gods wanted to make sure they were remembered, they put them in the sky as constellations. So I know there's different levels or different things that they could do to honor these heroes. Hesiod tells us that some of the greatest heroes were taken to the Isles of the Blessed, a paradise at the edge of the world where they lived free from hardship under the peaceful rule of Cronus, enjoying an eternal life that echoed the happiness once experienced by the golden race. So it sounds like the Isles of the Blessed is set up to mirror humanity during the golden race. So Cronus isn't actually over there ruling this. It's just set up the way he set it up, right? So this reward reflected an important belief in Greek mythology. While no human could escape death, a life of courage, honor, and sacrifice could earn everlasting glory, or just peace, of all the things that could happen in the afterlife, of all the different afterlife versions there are, just the promise of something peaceful, something that once this is done, it'll be okay. That enough is a good motivator to being a decent human. The heroic age stands apart from the other races as well, as it proves humanity's decline is not completely inevitable. Even in a world filled with war and suffering, extraordinary humans can rise above the circumstances and leave behind legacies. So the heroic age came to an end because the heroes all eventually had died. Sounds like they had died either in battle, naturally, of old age, a mixture. Like there wasn't one incident that they all died at once. They died in increments or individually. They perished. According to Hesiod, the heroic age ended after the great legendary conflicts of Greek mythology, especially Seven against Thebes, which was a civil war within Thebes. And the Trojan War also marks the end of the heroic age. The Works and Days, which is the works by Hesiod that we use to, discuss and determine what these different ages were, what they looked like, things like that. It explains that many heroes fell in these wars. So even though some had died before the wars, most of them died during the Trojan War. So the heroic age wasn't meant to last forever. Hesiod viewed history as a sequence of ages, each with its own purpose. Once the generation of legendary heroes had completed its great deeds and passed away, making way for the final age, the Iron Age. So at this point, it sounds like the marker of what separates the heroic age from the Iron Age is the Civil War in Thebes and the Trojan War. And so the heroes have all passed away. There's no more divinely sired heroes, children on the earth. Now we're going into the Iron Age. So it sounds like this is actually one of the first transitions of ages that was not a complete wipeout of humanity. So, after the Golden Age, humanity completely destroyed. Silver Age, humanity completely destroyed. Our Bronze Age, humanity destroyed. Now we have the heroic age, and it sounds like this race of humanity is the race that is now going to waterfall into the Iron Age, which is the final race or age of humanity. And it's actually what Hesiod explains is the one that we are living in at the moment. So stay tuned. I will go ahead and post the last video of the series shortly, going into the Iron Age and maybe some other thoughts from Hesiod. I think it's interesting how distinct each of the ages are and what defines them. It seems like humanity's gone through different cycles of creation, and even other mythologies, it's the same thing where humanity is created and destroyed, created and destroyed. So let's stop here. We're at the end of the heroic age at this point in our discussion. The heroes have perished. They are living in a replica of the Golden Age, and humanity is now moving into its current race or age. It's not perfection. It's a mixture of good and bad. And let's see what humanity gets itself into next. Remember, have fun, be safe, and I'll catch you in the next video.